This was not a troll. This was not a troll. This was a moment. We're seeing you guys, listen to this. Hear me out. I know this is a radical take. This is crazy. I know this is the craziest thing you've ever heard in your life. I think there's an attack on white Christians. Just hear me out. I think there might be. I'm not sure.
What is the crime? Because according to my knowledge of history, the enemies of Israel who have been persecuted, the Israelis, the Jewish people of this world have been persecuted for 5,000 years. But for the last 2,000 years, most of the persecution has come from white, European-centric Christians. That's been your enemy. No Palestinian helped to build Auschwitz. No Palestinian stood on the docks of New York City when boatloads of Jewish refugees trying to escape the Holocaust came here to be protected by this country and were turned away at the docks in New York and sent back to Germany to die. No Palestinian did that. No Palestinian ran the Spanish Inquisition. Your enemy is not the Palestinian people. It is white, Christian, European people who have been slaughtering Jews for the last 2,000 years. And let's just call it for what it is. But why are they in an open-air prison? Why are 2 million of them in an open-air prison?
So he's bringing up the Spanish Inquisition. My goodness. Back in Spain, where they basically put Muslims, non-Catholics, basically, Jewish people, Muslims on trial and basically religiously persecuted them. And that's it right there on MSNBC. So I did the video where I noticed they were saying this white stuff a lot. I did that video with Mika Brzezinski. And I'm like, what is going on? She was like, you white men or something like that. I was like, okay. Then they did the white rural rage recently. Then they had Rob Reiner on there talking about the Christian nationalism. They're really talking about, they really mean white there. I'm going to tell you what white really means. You probably already know that, but Christian nationalists. Then they have this one where Michael Moore on TV says that that white Christians, Euro Christians, are enemies of Jewish people. I mean, it's right there on TV. We've never seen hate like this on TV.
1,000 years. But for the last 2,000 years, most of the persecution has come from white, European-centric Christians.
So I'm perfectly fine with it. If you want to say this type of stuff on TV, just let someone from the other side on TV. We don't have that. We don't have both perspectives. You see, they don't have a problem with labeling things as hate. You see the problem with hate speech. If I were to say something bad about this group, then it might be hate speech. But if it's ordained and supported on MSNBC, that's not hate speech. Why isn't that hate speech? That's why you can't agree with the term hate speech. All it means is whoever has the power to call it hate. This is it right here. And I'm fine with labeling stuff hate speech if you allow a hate speech. If you don't allow it, then that means you just want control over me.
From white, European-centric 2,000 years, most of the persecution has come from white, European-centric Christians.
And that's allowed. But you don't have a counter perspective allowed. I'm fine with allowing it. We have free speech, but you don't. So that's how they get away with a lot of this stuff. They say, well, you know, Donald Trump did this. We can remove him from the ballot, but you wouldn't use it to remove. You could, on the same argument, you could use the exact same insurrection, Section 3 of 14th Amendment on Joe Biden for the border, for anything. You could use the same. Any state could do it. Why? Because the state said so, just like Colorado. But they allow that stuff because they know it won't happen evenly. Selective persecution, selective hate speech or not hate speech. So that's why you can't have this kind of stuff. And what the undertone of this really is, and I'm not even saying that Michael Moore is wrong here. I'm not even really getting into that. I don't think it should be right. For me, you're not my enemy unless you're trying to invade my rights. But what they're really doing here is saying Jewish people are better than white Christians. That's what that is saying. That's the whole point of that segment right there. Because if you say that Jewish people, these are your enemies, then you would have them on the same field and say, okay, this group and that group, sometimes there's philosophical clashes. But that's not what he's doing. The whole point of that segment wasn't to even do that. It was to put Jewish on top of white Christian. That was the whole point of the whole thing.
enemies of Israel who have been persecuted, the Israelis, the Jewish people of this world have been persecuted
Jewish people of this world.
for 5,000 years. But for the last 2,000 years, most of the persecution has come from white, European-centric Christians.
And that's what he's doing, is saying Jewish people are better than white Eurocentric Christians. But what he's really saying, I know he's saying white Eurocentric, but that's not what he really means. He obviously means anyone who disagrees with that comment is white. It's very confusing. What they say isn't reality. This is postmodernism. I would be included in this description of white Euro Christians. I know you're like, for people that are not in this world, you're very logical, and it doesn't even compute. They deal with emotions. There is no logic here. So they don't have to spell it out. They don't have to explain it. Hypocrisy is like their fuel. Like you call out hypocrisy, it doesn't matter. That's like saying, why are you putting gas in your car? For them, they're like, what do you mean? That's how I operate. It's not doing anything. They operate on emotions, and they will put you in a category that you don't even know that you're in. You don't even have to be a white Christian.
The enemies of Israel who have been persecuted, the Israelis, the Jewish people of this world have been persecuted for 5,000 years. But for the last 2,000 years, most of the persecution has come from white, European-centric Christians. That's been your enemy.
Let me show you what I mean. Even if you're Jewish and you don't like that comment, you disagree with Michael Moore, you fall in the white Euro-Christian camp. It's the exact same thing they did with black people. Remember, Nicole Hannah-Jones said, there's a definition of being politically black. It's the exact same thing. Let me show it to you here. We've talked about it. It's such a fascinating quote that we have to relive it from time to time. And here we go. This is the famous Nicole Hannah-Jones. I don't even know what she's been doing on X because I'm blocked from her now. But here we go. We did have some respectful discussion before she blocked me. She said, there is a difference between being politically black and being racially black. I am not defending anyone, but we all know this and should stop pretending that we don't. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Basically, she's saying if you're black, you've got to be Democrat, is what I interpret from it. Somebody asked her respectfully, I don't know what you mean. And she said, if you don't know, it's not for you. She didn't even answer it. And what does that have to do with the Jewish? The Jewish identity is doing the exact same thing. Let's take a look. Exact same thing. So if you're Jewish, you qualify under that same thing. They're talking about you. And here's where I'm going to get to it. There is this article from the Times of Israel, and I found it interesting. And the article says everything you need to know about the Jewish woman leading Mexico's presidential race. Why is Israel so concerned about the presidential race of Mexico and whether the person's Jewish or not? The same thing that the black imams do. We have a black mayor. We have a black justice. Why? Because that black means politically black. That means if you're black, you can't be MAGA, of course. You can't be libertarian, of course. You can't be anything other than licking the toes of the Democrat Party. And that's the same thing they're doing with the Jewish identity. Because she's Jewish, she's got to be down with Israel, right? She's got to be pro-Israel, right? Former Mexico City Mayor Claudia Sheinbaum is polling double digits ahead. This is back in September of 2023 of her closest competitor and will mark 2 firsts for the U.S. neighbor if she's successful. So I read this article. I'm like, man, this is interesting. So let's just go through some of the comments I had about this. And I said, Statista doesn't even have Jewish affiliation as a category when breaking down the demographics of Mexico. We're doing the whole same thing as Argentina. Javier Milei, Catholic, raised Catholic. The country's Catholic. It's like 0.14% of the people in Argentina are Jewish, and he's converting to, I don't know what he's doing. He looks all Jewish. Has a rabbi, everything. And look at it. They don't even have Jewish on here obviously they're Catholic. There's nothing there. It's like nothing. It's 72% Catholic and nothing else, basically. much less Jewish. Why would you be celebrating somebody just because they're Jewish? Does that mean they're good just because they're Jewish? That's the interpretation I get from it. So let's go down and get more. So Ron Coleman, I mentioned Ron Coleman. This is why I respect Ron Coleman, if you don't know, is Jewish. I don't have any problem with Jewish people, just in case people misconstrued that. Some people do. That's just not my take. My take is pro-Israel. There's some Jewish people who are not pro-Israel. Israel first over America. So Ron Coleman doesn't understand. Remember, my question was, why is the Times of Israel so interested in a Catholic country having a Jewish president? And it's a vague question on purpose. But if you don't know where I'm coming from, then I can understand why you wouldn't understand. So I was like, you know what? Let me rephrase. What is the purpose of this article? So that I was like, okay, what's the purpose of it? Then somebody I respect greatly. I was on with Warren months ago, maybe years ago, on his Locals channel. He's one of the best Tesla guys out there. But he said it's possible some of the readers are Jewish and interested in stories about Jews around the world. And that's just weird to me. Like, just because I'm black, I need to know about a black around the world. I don't like Brazil's gonna hire a black this or that. Okay, and like, who cares? Or I don't know, a Christian this or that. Okay, great. I said I find that odd. Can someone help me out? What does it mean to be politically Jewish? Pulled from the article. And there we go again. The exact comparison to what I've been saying about what they do with black people. They're doing the same thing with the Jewish identity. This is from the article. Her Jewish identity is more political. I had this in my back pocket. So I started with the vague tweet, and I knew I was going to bring this out when people tried to call me anti-Semitic or whatever bull they were going to call me. So I said, okay, explain this to me. Her Jewish identity is more political than religious. What? What does that mean? I don't even know what that means. Is she Jewish or not? What is it? So it's ethnicity, it's a religion, and I guess it's a political ideology too. That's according to the Times of Israel. She grew up with Ashkenazi parents who immigrated from Lithuania. She was never really at home. Her life was secular. She was never really Jewish, like many secular leftist Jews. There's not many of them, but like many of that small group, her parents, she didn't grow up, being really Jewish. But she told a group of Jewish women voters that she was proud Jewish woman, which if you can, that's fine. But my question is, what does this mean? Her identity is more political. Her Jewish identity is more political than religious. What the hell does that mean? That's what Michael Moore was doing. Michael Moore is saying, if you're Jewish, you're good. If you're black, you're good. Come on home. Come on home, black imams. Come on home, Jewish people. Come on home to the Democratic Party, basically. And if you go to my reply here, I said, what the hell is this? And I talked about, I had the same question and I put that there. So I'm not just questioning. Nobody had a problem when I questioned it for black imams. I sure as hell hope you don't have a problem if I question about Jewish people, because then now I need to ask you, what's the difference? So now I go down here, and this is the whole conversation where somebody asked Nicole Hannah-Jones, what does it mean? She said, if you don't know, it ain't for you. She's like, I honestly don't know what you mean. So Ron Coleman, you see why I respect Ron Coleman. He's like, yeah. He said, it's a pretty stupid formulation. Yeah. He's a real one. You can have a real conversation with somebody who I didn't make any, I will have jokes about the Jewish people coming out of the tunnels or something like that. I'm not joking on this one. And he was like, yeah, I don't know what the hell that is. It was stupid. Yeah, it is stupid. Let's take a look at the chat, see how everybody's feeling. Screwed up rebellion. Yeah. What does it mean? That's a fair. So you put some asinine statement out there like her Jewish identity is more political than anything else. So I'm like, what the hell does that mean? You can fill that in with whatever you want to. If screwed up rebellion is wrong by saying it's Jewish supremacy, then explain it. That's all I need. Nothing else. That's why Ron Coleman's like, Ron Coleman is not going to take a bad take just to have a bad take. There's a lot of people out there that are phony, that are fakes, that will have a bad take just because I don't know why they're uncomfortable with it. So Screwed Up Rebellion said the J team brainwashed the blacks to think like them, perpetual victims. Never thought of it that way, but it's the same thing.
Middle MAGA.